This Angela Anaconda episode is probably going to be more controversial than other episodes. This is an episode that's been requested of me to do for a while now by a couple different people, and I've personally been hesitant to do it because it does feature a racial stereotype character pretty prominently. That is the character of Miss Yamagaki. She is a rather crude stereotype of a Japanese-American person. And the weird thing is, when this show does something well, it's still to this day ahead of its time, such as the fact that Angela is a character who's allowed to get angry and that's the center of the show, or Gordy Reinhardt and his dad's relationship. Gordy's very feminine, his dad's a very macho football coach, but they don't do any of the preachy plot lines. They get along very naturally, have a very sweet relationship, and it never feels like it's done for a message. It feels very natural. Or you have Josephine Praline, who for the most part is portrayed very sympathetically. A little less so in this episode, but for the most part, she is a devout character who is very faithful to her religion and is shown as a good person and a real kid. So that's really, really impressive. The show has done some pretty ballsy plot lines regarding religion. So when it doesn't do something right, it tends to mess up a lot more on its portrayal of more ethnic characters, people of different nationalities, people of different races, and it's pretty painful. It's weird. You can't really claim ignorance or it was just the times, because around this time you had some very progressive shows. You had Rugrats and you had Hey Arnold, who were very sympathetic to different characters. So why this show has some particularly crude stereotypes, and not just racially, personality-wise too, is beyond me. I don't really want to say this was a person's fault. I don't really know. And even Pepper Ann deals with issues of racial insensitivity in a pretty thoughtful way before people were even talking about some of this stuff. Where this show fails, I couldn't tell you. So if that's something you're sensitive to, I would recommend skipping this episode. And I personally think it's important to call out when the show messes up, where the storytelling falls flat, but also when it does something well, because I think the stuff it does well really does tend to get overlooked. Interestingly enough, people criticizing the show don't really focus on that element of it, which is also strange to me. So, that being said, here is Yellow Book Road.
Today is the third Sunday of the month, which could only mean one thing and one thing only. The Bookmobile!
Bookmobile, that's cool. We usually had a book fair. And I know the guy who designed that.
Books! Hello? Ah! Hold your horse. You get books when I say you get books.
Oh boy.
Okay, you get books. Yay!
I don't think it helps much, but she is... Miss Yamagaki at least is a nice person, even if she's intimidating.
I was looking at that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. So sorry.
Oh, Gordy!
What you got there, Johnny Abide?
Self-help books.
It's a book on brain teasers. Uncle Nicky says since he got the looks in the family, someone else has to be the brains.
Nona.
What are you getting, Gina Lash?
I'm not feeling too well. I think I'll look for a book on heartburn.
And before the internet, too.
Hey, the Wizard of Oz!
Angela, I must warn you, that book deals with witches and wizards.
It does?
And if this were written a few years later, that book would have been Harry Potter.
Witches and wizards?
Oh, Nanette looks so embarrassed by her mom here.
To corrupt the young minds of Tapwater Springs. Whatever happened to wholesome stories like Snow White and Cinderella?
Specifically by Brothers Grimm.
You got it all wrong, Fessy lady. Wizard of Oz, lovely story of little girl and her dream of returning home to the beautiful people she loved the most. $4!
Fine. You keep trying to push witchcraft on our impressionable youths.
Wow, Nanette does not look happy to be around her mom.
Bunny Manoir.
That's okay. I wasn't listening to first the Bunny Manoir. $4!
Oh, the music.
This has been the best
Such a
bookmobile
stereotype.
day in bookmobile history. We got new books, and Ms. Yamagaki told off Mrs. Manoir.
Who is not character characterized like this in any other episode. Aw, and Josephine's on the negative side this time. And no Fahrenheit 451 jokes?
Burn these books over my dead body!
Hold it! Can I say something? Look, a witch! Got it!
Got it.
Hang on, kids! We go!
It is a little weird that Nanette's mom is portrayed this way. Wouldn't it make more sense if it was Josephine's mom? She's very faithful, but then she has these extremist parents. Nanette's family's not portrayed this way in any other episode. Although, this is the only episode I can think of that has a car chase. This one's action-packed. Oh my god. Yeah, dealing with religious extremism in a kid's show. I can think of South Park doing something like this. Also, that is Miss Jennerette. She's in another episode. Thank God she didn't get hit.
Kids, stop now! Book burners right behind! Hold on, kids!
I'm seriously disappointed they didn't make a Fahrenheit 451 joke.
What's your plan now?
We don't really have a plan on account of we weren't planning on any of this.
Oh god. Oh god!
A witch to save you!
Oh gosh. When I first watched it, that was legitimately terrifying. For a number of reasons.
Oh, you. Mrs. Manoir, how did you get here?
By clinging for dear life onto the side of this truck.
Also, the one southern character's a bad guy.
With that smut.
Well, we won't be getting anywhere. We stuck in mud.
Stuck? Out here in the middle of nowhere? Well, don't just sit there. Get us out of here! Okay, on three. Miss Yamagata, you hit the gas, while Mrs. Manoir, you push on the bookmobile. On what? 3.
Okie dokie.
You fools! You have ruined my beautiful ensemble!
Why are they putting the books in the mud?
Hopefully this make truck lighter and we get unstuck.
Wait! This time,
I don't
I'm
think
not
it's an
standing
Asian
behind
American
the
doing
tire.
that voice.
I'm no fool. I'll avoid the line of fire altogether from here. I told you I was no fool.
This mud or quicksand?
Can anyone hear me? Mayday! I need assistance and a beautician immediately! How come no one responds to my pleas? Don't they know I'm rich? That you're talking into the bookmobile's loudspeaker?
Books, come and get your books. They're fun, they're mental, they're fun.
Oh, Gordy.
Oh, how? He must be worried sick over me. So now
He
what
must
do
be
we
happy
do?
to have a break.
Only one thing we can do. Sit and wait. Someone bound to pass by. In meantime, I have a beautiful story. Now, Dorothy lived in midst of
Okay, and this is going to be a different fantasy sequence than usual.
was a farmer, and Aunt Em, who was the farmer's wife.
What if we never get home?
Huh.
So now I am following the yellow brick road on my way to see the wonderful wizard of Tapwater Spring, in hopes that maybe he can help me find my way back home.
Hope the wizard can give you a good mechanic.
Johnny, a body? What are you doing up there? How should I know? I don't have a brain. Johnny would say if you only had a brain. Well, come on, Johnny, a body. We'll see if the wizard can give you
She
a
does
brain.
not seem to like Johnny all that much.
What is it? I will ask Gina, the tin girl. I have terrible heartburn. Gina will say, if
Or-
only I didn't have heartburn. Well, come
Or,
on, I will say to
I've
Gina
seen her be a
last,
terrible
and
friend. I'm
maybe
gonna go
the wizard
with
will
she has
give
no
you
heart.
heartburn.
Gordy.
Then we will find Gordy Reinhardt trying to find the courage to tell a certain someone that he loves her. Well, come join us, I will say, as we follow the yellow brick road. Books, books, come and get your books. They're fun, they're mental, they're fundamental.
I love how King is Toto. That's included in here.
Surrender, Angela!
Oh no! It is the Wicked Witch of Tapwater Springs.
It's Gelfie.
She is trying
Wink.
to stop us. Lucky for us, I will call on Ms. Yamagaki, the good witch of Tapwater Springs.
Aww. Oh, that's
She will
cute.
give me a bucket of mud, which I will dump on the Wicked Witch.
Not as sadistic as some of the others.
I'm melting.
And I love the Wizard of Oz and Wicked.
You will tell me. There's no place like home. 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 If only we could follow the yellow brick road.
Hey, what if we put books under the tires for traction and make a yellow book road?
Johnny and Buddy, that's brilliant. You don't need a book on brains. You have a good brain.
I do? Hey, yeah, I do.
Well, I think it's a dumb idea.
Well, we don't care. We're doing it anyway.
Gordy!
Reinhardt, you stood up to her. You do have courage.
I suppose I do. I do, don't I?
Yay!
Yep.
Hey, my heartburn's gone.
Gina Lash, you didn't have heartburn this whole time. You just had a little gas. Make that a lot of gas.
We use cheap romance novels. Nobody cares about them.
Cheap shot.
Here goes.
That seemed like an unnecessary cheap shot.
Aren't you coming?
I want to know what happens in the end to that wonderful woman on the flying broomstick.
You mean you've been trying to ban The Wizard of Oz this whole time, but you've never actually read it?
That's commentary right there.
I mean, just tell me how it ends.
Under one condition.
Disgusting.
And so, in the hopes that this so-called Wicked Witch of the West can continue being a positive role model to the children of Tapwater Springs, I am officially calling off the protest. What do we do now? We're an angry mob.
Hey, is that a real first stole?
Get her! There's no place like home.
I know some of you guys like this episode, and if you do, that's awesome. I'd like to know why. What drew you to this episode? What made you remember it? What do you like about it? But for me personally, I have issues with it. Even taking out the fact that Miss Yamagaki is a rather crude racial stereotype, she is portrayed as a good person. She's portrayed on the side of the kids, on the good side, and promotes literacy. But you really can't ignore just how much of a stereotype she is more than a character. Even ignoring that, I do have other issues with it. The issue I take with it is the storytelling and the pacing. The pacing is very, very rushed this time around. It comes across like a very special episode, a bit one-sided one at that. And it's very rushed. You get the protest, you get the car chase, you get them broken down on the road, and you don't really feel like they've been broken down in the middle of the road long enough for you to feel sorry for them, for you to think, oh God, how are they going to get out of this? It's just one thing after another after another. It could have used more breathing room. Like I said, could have benefited from being a two-parter, 22-minute. And that way you could have gotten more of the setup and more of that integration with The Wizard of Oz. I love The Wizard of Oz a lot. And it was really cute to see the characters dressed up. That was a lot of fun. I would have liked to see more of that setup. Granted, it didn't feel like forced foreshadowing, so that was cool. And the problem I had with the message was that it's all about how books are great, but then it has that unnecessary cheap shot about, oh, no one cares about romance novels, but she does. And another problem I had was that she does try to do better. She does listen to them. She listens to the story, finds out that, oh, turns out she's never actually read the stories, just blindly accepting something, which, boy, there's some commentary in there. But then she calls off the protest and she tries to do better and they attack her anyway. So they're still going to be punishing her, which I thought killed the message. Did feel one-sided, like I've said. And the characterization was very, very strange. I mean, you do have Josephine as part of the mob, which seems strange because in the last episode and a couple other times in the series, she's portrayed rather sympathetically and she's very sweet, she's very devout, but she's still a real kid. I don't know why she's part of the mob. I feel like it's also weird that it's Nanette's mom who's the religious zealot, because you don't see her that way in her other appearances. I will say Nanette looked very embarrassed by her mom, which is very funny. And seeing Nanette's horrified reaction to her mom did get me thinking a little bit, and I couldn't help but noticing that both the book they used, The Wizard of Oz, and the antagonist, a religious bigot, both have connections to the LGBT community, and I couldn't help but noticing a bit of an undercurrent. And for those of you who don't know, The Wizard of Oz has a huge gay icon status, particularly the movie, as it starred Judy Garland, who is a huge gay icon, and the style and the story really did influence a lot of gay people and gay culture. Gay men primarily. Gay women tend to gravitate more towards Wicked, which this show does predate. And that's why I referenced Gelfie, which is the shipping couple name of Elphaba and Glinda. And as we do know, many LGBT people have faced persecution under the guise of religion. So I couldn't help but noticing a bit of an undercurrent in this episode as well, due to the connection to both of those things. Even though The Wizard of Oz is a book that most children would have known, and it is one that does get on banned book lists, so likely could have been chosen for that reason, but I have also noticed a queer undercurrent to Angela and Nanette's relationship.
It's like my pen pal and me are soulmates or something. She has an annoying girl in her class who is her mortal enemy too.
But that's mine! Very impressive, Angela Anaconda. Nanette, those little Eiffel Tower stickers look like the ones you have that you won't let us use. You're Angela's pen pal? How embarrassing! Embarrassing? Hardly. I knew she was my pen pal all along. Her total humiliation was my plan. Can you believe she didn't know? Address me as Nanette, ma chérie.
Come on, Nanette. Ma chérie.
Blackmail some affection out of your arch enemy.
Okay, student.
It's not there. But I've been really hesitant to go there. While I do notice it, I don't want to romanticize bullying. I don't like the idea that, oh, because someone bullies you, it means they're secretly in love with you. Because that is a horrible thought. It romanticizes abuse. And I'm against that. But taking this episode as canon, while the side characterization is really weird in this episode, assuming that Nanette's mom really is this religious bigot, I wonder if that does explain a few things about this relationship. If
Nanette Manoir, I have a feeling you and I will be friends forever.
there was a bit of a connection between them, but then this force is why Nanette has to overcompensate. You could even argue that her doll-like appearance, well, Angela calls her fake all the time, you could argue that that doll-like appearance is fake. Maybe that's her way of overcompensating. It's possible. Gives a bit of a dimension to this episode. While I do still have problems with this episode, I couldn't help but noticing a bit of another layer to it. Kind of explains a few things. Clearly, the apple does not fall far from the tree, but Nanette's not a religious zealot. She's somebody who thinks she's sophisticated, so the characterization didn't make a ton of sense to me. So if they're trying to be sophisticated, that's usually their shtick. They think they're sophisticated, but they're not, so why are they anti-literacy? Why these characters? I think it would have made more sense, in my opinion, if it were Josephine's mom who was the religious zealot, but then you have Josephine, who's very sweet, very devout, but she's still a real kid. She's still a good person. So, I don't really know if this was supposed to be a very special episode, because it does come across as more of that than other episodes have. And it feels like, oh, we want to promote reading. How do you do that? It was one-sided. Again, ballsy that it's going after religious extremism, because you don't really see that in kids shows. South Park, you see that all the time, but you don't really see that in kids shows, so that's really interesting. But this wasn't done as well as something like Martyrdom of Saint Ninette or Turtle Confessions. It does condemn the extremism, and it definitely condemns the blindly hating something. But for me, the problems got in the way of the intention. The problems did get away. The problems did get in the way of the message and the good stuff this time around. So I get why people would have problems with the show, especially since, like I said, the good stuff's really good, but then when it messes up, it really messes up. There was potential. Like I said many, many times, there is still a ton of potential with this show and with these characters. I still believe that there's nothing in this show that's so bad that it can't be redone the second time around. And now we have a better understanding of how to write better characters. I mean, not that they didn't, but now especially we are more mindful of people of different backgrounds and people of different beliefs. We're trying, at least. So I really do feel that we can learn from this, and we can do better, and we can see, what did this do right? What did it do wrong? Because the show's really interesting to look at it that way. I do understand why people would have a big problem with the show, but I do think the good really is worth building on and making something awesome and something better. Love to know your thoughts on that. This one definitely got a lot out of me.